Welcome back to Full Court Press, Fast Breaks News Show to bring you amazing content all MLQ season. My name is Whitney Ho.
And my name is Nicholas Love. And week after week, we're going to get right into the action, starting off with, I believe, would probably be the best series that we've seen in MLQ so far between the San Antonio Soldados and the Houston Legends. Whitney, how are we feeling about the series? 2-1? How you feel?
Yeah, I gotta say, I got my prediction right. I was a little upset that San Antonio didn't win all three because, as you guys all know, of my allegiance in MLQ. But, however, I do think it was a great first series for the Soldados. You know, there was a lot of questions in the air, of like how well were they going to perform? How well were they going to do without Jay, Matt, Lewis, Christian Cortez? All of those people left. Heat took the summer off. Most of Heat took the summer off, and got some real young kids up in there. We got some Texas State kids, Texas kids. Soham Sharma from Illini. Honestly, it was a great showing. I was really, really pleased with at least like the first two games. And I think the big difference between San Antonio and Houston was just definitely the beaters. And we've been like saying this all year about Houston's beaters and how they need to like really learn because they got a lot of really young kids in there. Sam Houston players, Ray from Texas State. But I think Chris and Baldy being really experienced beaters, having played in the final, having held it down for the Soldados, throughout the past year and getting that a lot of experience, that was really the difference maker. They definitely controlled the momentum and really heavily swung this series into the Soldados' favor. So how are you feeling, Nick?
Yeah, I think overall for San Antonio, I think you came in saying we need to get this series win, and you got it. The third game, I think, played through a little bit of depth here and there, started to bring it back towards the end. But even then, I still think there were great moments in that give and go, giving, Seekers time to potentially catch with Miguel right in the game. I think that's great strategy. Like, you hope to get that win, but I think for San Antonio, you played really well. I think some areas of improvement, especially thinking about that Kansas City game coming up, is that, like you said earlier, the beaters really dictated the pace of the game and allowing for chasers to get out loose, fast break, do one-on-ones, two-on-ones here and there. But I think defensively for beaters, like you allowed yourself to get into this area of making long range beats or pressing up too high before your chasers pressed out, where Chase Contreras got 5 goals just sitting in the back where no one was flying out to him. Like, I think I need a little bit more from San Antonio's chasers on that, or either their beaters are closing out their beats with their feet and not making these long range beats, or getting so separated from the play where like you're not getting Brandon Cabina coming down on a drive on the right side of the hoops because your beater's no longer there. But I think overall, like San Antonio played well. Like they played it to their game, getting in transition, making the right passes. Sometimes, like there were definitely some times where we hero balled a little bit too much, took a tackle we didn't need to when there were some open chasers. But it's the first series. I think going into KC, like, how are we going to clean that up? Because I think KC also had a little bit of the same issue. And so I think, if we can continue to settle down into some good half score offenses, I think Ella had some great taps on the hoops, opening up some shots, like shoot, super highlight there, honorable mention for MVP for sure. But I think they played really well. Thinking about Houston, game one definitely got away from you. You played too much in the San Antonio's game. You got into the transition game that you weren't prepared for. Stepping up as always, Riley Moman, actual stat pattern, like got all over the place, goals, snagging balls out the air, getting stops, running in transition. Like that's what Riley does best. And I think Riley thrives in this environment, not necessarily for all the Houston players though. And so I think you got a lot of use out of stopping the transition sometimes and settling in that half court where you could extend San Antonio's beaters. And I think you saw that more specifically in game two, although once you got the Frop game got taken away, and then in game three playing in depth and playing in that second half, like I thought you played well in the half court. And so I think if you can find that balance, because you're not going to win the beater exchanges and playing in the South and against these beaters, and especially going into conference championships, you're playing experienced beaters and great beaters where you're not going to be able to play that. You're going to have to settle it down. I think you did that in the second half, and I'm looking forward to seeing you up against Mini. I think that'll be a really good series if you're able to pull that off and be able to get to play them, as well as if you're able to play Toronto, like that'll also be great as well. So I'm excited for the rest of the season, as for the Houston Legends as well as for this KC San Antonio series too.
Yeah, I think the Legends definitely, this is the strongest that the Southwest has been overall in MLQ in a really long time. And it honestly has been, well, since the Outlaws, really, but it has been great to watch. And transitioning to that, we're going to get into our MVPs. And Nick already brought up Ella Jordan. Ella Jordan was number one on my nominee list. Unfortunately, like my MVP is somebody else, and you'll understand once we get there. But Ella Jordan beating, that was huge for San Antonio. Having her such a good utility player in Ella, U.S. national team DA member, great player all the way around. Definitely brought in some leadership and was working really good with Soham. That was a really great matchup. I loved seeing that beater pairing. My other two nominees are going to be Chris and Baldy together as a joint because of how much they controlled the game and how reliant San Antonio was on them. And they delivered. They had a great series. Also want to shout out Miguel, big weekend for Miguel, 13 goals, 13, 2, and 5, I believe. So 13 goals, 2 assists, and then 5 stops. So definitely a great weekend for Miguel. But my MVP is gonna go to the one and only Hayden Boys. Such a great player, such a great leader, a coach coming out and putting up a 10, 6, and 8 with only 3 turnovers. 247 fantasy points. Like, genuinely can't have a better player than Hayden Boys. I love watching him play and I love watching him do what he does for the Soldados. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, you could see the change of pace, like especially your shouts of honorable mentions in both Solom and Hayden. If you watch just the first 4 minutes of San Antonio in game one, you would have sat there and thought they're about to win it all. Like execution wise, on the beater side, finishing goals easy and getting back in transition. I think it was 4-0 or 4-0 with like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's what you want to see, right? If San Antonio can replicate that in the way that Solom and Hayden like controlled that game in the beginning of the series, who can stop San Antonio at that, right? That's the kind of momentum we need to continue for San Antonio for sure.
That's what
Uh,
I like to hear. That's what I like to
I
hear.
mean, look, preseason number 4. We'll get into FBN rankings a little bit after, but like there's so much room to grow for the San Antonio team where like they're still going to make an incredible run at champs and can take it depending on how they seat up. So it's looking bright. But for my honorable mention, I part of me was like, do I want to go back to Riley? Like, if you think about it, they put up 6 goals, 10 assists, 10 stops. The best chaser that Houston is able to have on the field. Like they're all over the field. Like I wish I had a Riley on my team. That's honestly how I feel, right? But I don't want to do back to back for Riley. So my other Houston chaser that put in a lot of work this week, that last weekend, that I think in many ways changed the pace of the game for Houston and having them settle down and being able to settle into the half court, finishing on hoop sides, and really taking the initiative to make the extra pass. I'm gonna go Brandon Cabina, 9 goals, 3 assists, 2 stops, and only 2 turnovers. Like in a game that's very transition heavy, that San Antonio is a really looking to press. I thought Brandon took care of the ball really well, found the great options, and was able to finish goals when they had them and were available to them. So I'm going to go Brandon for my MVP for the week.
That's definitely a great shout. I think Brandon had a great performance. And, it's hard to recognize, chasers like that, especially when you have players like Hayden and Miguel putting up so many numbers. But, looking at it from Houston's perspective, like Brandon was just as much as essential to that third game win as Riley was. Like, really, if you look at it from that perspective. But before we get into our next recap, which is Charlotte versus Cleveland, I want to introduce my close personal friend and rising Texas State captain, recent U.S. national team DA addition, Nate Targonski, player for the San Antonio Soldados. So, how are you doing, Targo?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's
Well,
good to have you on. It's good to have you on.
I
very
appreciate
excited.
it. I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
This is the new young and fresh quad bowl voices that we're talking about. Okay. Like, no, okay. I love David so much, and I was going to ask him to be our guest this week, but I want to hear Targo on a podcast. Is this your first podcast ever that you're appearing on?
Yeah, probably. Not gonna lie, heart's beating out my chest right now. But yeah, I'm definitely this is definitely a first for me.
Awesome. We love to hear that. All right, Nick, you can start off with our first question for Targo.
Yeah. First question, first MLQ series, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
How did the series go for you? How are you feeling about it? What did you have some pregame jitters going into it? And then, from your perspective, how do you feel like San Antonio did for the week?
I think going into it, I didn't really have that many jitters. I definitely, I didn't get the production I personally wanted, put up some Tony Snell looking numbers, but um I definitely think that first game we came out and we did what we needed to do, and then we carried that momentum into the second game to get our depth in for the third. Um, I would have wished that we came out with the sweep, but I mean, Houston. As much as it pains me to say, Houston is relentless. They're gonna keep coming out. They're gonna keep coming, and for that third game, they settled in. They really settled in, and they showed that they can play ball too. So I'm not upset at the 2-1. A series win is always amazing to have. But yeah, I thought we did fantastic.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. My question is a little bit, it's gonna put our thinking caps on, but you had a great season last year with Texas State and USQ, definitely filling in a role, a really big facilitator leadership role that, is kind of a first, especially after like the absence of Ian Crow on our team. Definitely kind of changed the way like your style was. You definitely grew into yourself as a player. So how are you using that USQ season that you just had, our finals run, as you like approach MLQ, and how has your role on the Soldados changed after that?
Um, so I think like the biggest thing is that I want to be very adaptable. This past season, I personally grew a lot as a leader, and it took more than just like scoring a lot or being like good on defense. It also took like understanding who you're with and knowing the role that you need to play with that line. So looking forward to this MLQ season. Um, I'm running down the line with Miguel. Miguel's going to score the ball, right? So I just got to make sure, hey, I'm playing great defense and we're not getting those 1-and-1 trades. You know what I mean? So I think the biggest thing is just really focusing on being adaptable and playing into the role that I personally have for each line.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's real. I think a lot of, especially one of the questions that I had, particularly for San Antonio last year, was like, are people going to fit into roles? Like everyone on San Antonio last year was a scorer, right? Everyone can put up 1,000 goals. So like, are people going to be able to fit into their roles and their systems and being able to play team ball? And I think in a lot of ways, like you saw that a lot this weekend. So I definitely see what you're coming from there.
Mhm.
Speaking of like, there's a lot of talent on San Antonio as well as a lot of talent on Houston. Like from the weekend, how did you feel like playing with the actual team in an actual series as well as against Houston? Like, what were your feelings with playing with certain people and playing against certain people? Like, were you excited for some of the matchups or not as excited for some of them?
I was very excited to play against a fellow Texas State beater, Raymundo Nunez. I mean, just a dog. But honestly, a person that really surprised me, and I know y'all talking about him a little bit, but Dylan, I mean, coming off an injury to the knee and watching him go out there, and I personally think he balled out. That was really, honestly, it was amazing to watch and play against. But playing with most of this Soldados team, I think we don't quite have that chemistry like Houston has. Like a lot of them have been playing for a long time. A lot of us are just kind of coming from all over the place. Like you have Hayden who plays with Copperheads, and like a few of us do play with Texas State in Texas, or Miguel who plays with Rain. Like we're kind of all over the place, and I think as this season goes on, we're going to continue to develop that chemistry. Um, but man, I really, really enjoy playing with Soham. I mean, you talk about somebody that gets you out on a fast break. Soham is that person. He will do everything he can to get you out on a fast break. So I really enjoy playing with him.
Yeah, when I saw Soham's name on the San Antonio roster, that was so huge. I love being able to use MLQ as a kind of a vessel to play with players that you never would in a normal USQ season. And having his different play style is going to be huge for us going into next season as well. But ending last question. So you guys have a confirmed matchup against Kansas City coming up. But if all goes well, going into the postseason, are there any, teams that you're really looking forward to match up against? Someone that you maybe want to get your get back against, or think that they're ranked a little bit too high and you guys deserve to be higher?
It's really hard to say looking into the postseason. Because I really, really want to win this Kansas City series. There's a lot of people. I'm not going to say robbed because they definitely earned it, but they've beat us now 2 years in a row. and I got to do. I feel like personally, we got to do something about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I personally am really looking for this Kansas City series. It will be at home, I believe. So we don't even got to travel about this. So I'm really looking forward to this series. When it comes to champs and the postseason, I don't know. It'll all depend on like the seeding and stuff. So I can't really say that far ahead, but I'm looking at one matchup at a time, pretty much.
That's a good mindset. That's a good mindset. I'm not even kidding you. I was talking about the Texas State versus Creighton final literally last night and reminiscing on every single moment of that game. And oh my God, the horrors, they never cease, dude. They never cease.
I just
But
saw an edit the other day, and I was just like, man, the small hoop edit that hurt my heart.
no, genuinely, it brought it all back. I was like, oh no, oh
Yeah.
no. But okay, so we'll let you
There's
go,
more things to
Targo.
get done.
But thank you so, so much for joining us. It was really a
Yes.
pleasure to have you. And we're really both wishing you guys luck, you and the Soldados luck against Kansas City and, in the rest of the season. And hopefully you guys will continue to win and make a really strong champs run and defend that title. We got it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Well, thank y'all so much for having me on. It was a pleasure to be here.
No,
Of
no, thank
course.
you. Thank you.
All righty. Y'all have a good night.
You
Y'all.
too.
So moving on to our Charlotte versus Cleveland series. Charlotte was able to come away with a sweep over Cleveland and won the Gateway Division for the first time, the first team to actually secure their championship. Did you have any highlights from the series? People, talk about things that you like to see?
Well, I gotta say first and foremost, congratulations, Charlotte. Okay, it was a great performance. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, it's Cleveland. And I reject that idea. I reject that mindset. This was a good win for Charlotte. They came out and they took care of business. That's what they had to do, and they secured the crown. They're gonna get some good seeding going into conference champs. I'm very excited to continue to see how Cleveland matches up against Detroit. That is definitely something that I want to see because I feel like Cleveland, everyone was looking at their roster and they're like, oh my God, they're going to get wiped. And they kind of did. But, there's a lot of room for growth. You have two really good players, two good facilitators in Joe Lombardi and Titus Chan, and they have the foundation that they're willing to build upon. So it's kind of more of a how much are they going to continue to build and can they continue to be competitive? And will they let this loss kind of fuel them for when they play Detroit, which is a much kind of closer matchup? We'll see. Actually, we'll see. I don't play for Detroit. I'll let Nick comment on that. But congratulations, Charlotte. That was a great series. Really took care of business. Very happy with how Charlotte ended up being this year. A lot of people had them ranked pretty low, especially in the FBN rankings. I'm pretty sure they were 9. And they have definitely, we'll talk about this later, but they have definitely risen up a few spots after their first two series. So congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, I watched, so Detroit actually had a practice, and so we actually had a team bonding event to be able to watch Charlotte versus Cleveland because we played Charlotte and then we played Cleveland in a couple of weeks. And I think Cleveland looked good. Like I've had the opportunity to play Cleveland multiple times over the years. And what I've appreciated most from Cleveland in this series that they had against Charlotte was that they didn't look like normal Cleveland, right? They tried out different things and like they were having people slide and push off the middle hoop, right? They were being more aggressive in the way that they attack players out of the back with their dodgeballs. Like Charlotte, I mean Cleveland hadn't done that before, right? And so I'm glad to see things are different, are being a little bit changed or looking different in the Cleveland department. And I think that showed in the ability to get out and fast break and also be able to slow down and score in the half court, whose name isn't Joe Lombardi. That being said, Charlotte continued to apply a lot of pressure, in which I think they're going to continue with this entire series. You got some new people that came in. Cole Tibbs came back. Shout out to Cole, dominant player, being able to finish through hoops and finish through contact. I think they look great, and so like I think it was a great series, right, on both sides. Charlotte showed we're legit. We're here to win. Like let's get ready and gear up for conference championships. Cleveland showed some great improvements over the things that I've seen in the previous years, and they're looking forward to our series in Detroit. Will they win it? No. And I'll say that they're not going to win it, but I still think they look good, and so I'll give credit to Cleveland there. Something that I will say, and then when I'm moving to MVPs, we have to find ways to score that's not named Joe Lombardi. Now add Titus Chan. Like we have to figure this out. We literally have to figure it out. I don't know where it's gonna come from, what system we have to run, but like goals have to be spread out across players, right? You can't just dominate in two. And I pulled up the stats just to clarify. Titus and Joe scored a total of 17 goals and they had 14 turnovers, right? It's not the best. You're still outscoring goals to turnovers, right? If you add assists, that's an extra 3 assists on top. Outside of those two players, only 10 goals were scored over 3 games. So that was averaging out 3 goals a game for Cleveland. That isn't from Joe or Titus. On top of that being 25 turnovers from those players. We have to find more ways to score and to protect the ball and from Cleveland. Just plain and simple. That's all I got, Whitney. Who are your MVPs?
No, that's definitely a very valid criticism, okay? Like, and we kind of talked about this. We were talking about our MVPs before getting on filming this episode, and I have Titus as my MVP, but Nick raised a very valid concern about the turnover aspect. That is definitely something that Cleveland really needs to get a hold of. And it sucks that, people probably looked at Cleveland and they're like, oh my gosh, they used to only have Joe Lombardi, and now they have Joe Lombardi and Titus. Wow, this is huge for Cleveland. But we can't make an MLQ franchise rely on hero balling. That's genuinely the best way to watch a franchise fall because you need to have the backup, you need to have the support and the other roles that are able to, really be a strong team instead of just a strong front. That is like the biggest thing that we're seeing from Cleveland right now. But, I don't want to just bash on Cleveland and be like, oh my God, you guys suck. You had so many turnovers. Like, genuinely, you guys had a good performance. So I am going to give my MVP to Titus. 11 goals, 3 assists, and 3 stops. Genuinely, I thought it was a great personal performance from him. Definitely an amazing, amazing difference maker in that series. And ultimately, they weren't able to pull out a win, but, getting 11 goals in the first MLQ series of the season, it's always a great thing. So shout out Titus. My other two nominees though were from Charlotte. I want to give Charlotte their flowers. Lee Hodge definitely was a big one. Ended with 9 goals, 5 assists, and 6 stops. So great weekend for Lee. And finally, my last nominee is Tony, the beater from Charlotte. Had an amazing, amazing weekend. 8 stops on 27 drives and a +4. So definitely shout out Tony, a huge difference maker in that series, and was a main reason as to why they were able to pull out the W.
Yeah, and especially like for Tony, like for context, Tony only had 27 drives. Out of that, like Cody had more, Celine had a couple more, like Mickey Harrelson had one more, like 8 stops and 27 drives, like that's really great. And so I think Tony also had like a really great series and definitely was one of my honorable mentions. But for
Mhm.
my MVP, this comes particularly because um when they played us, like they were still active on hoops, they scored a little bit. But I think they took a really huge leap from our series to the Cleveland series about really being more active on offense and being more of a cutter and more finishing through hoops. Um, and so we'll bring up a couple clips just to show you some of those examples. But I'm gonna actually give it to Lindsey Simpson. I think they played really well, and being able to take up space and own their space both on offense and defense, about pestering people, about being able to finish through contact. They finished the series with 5 goals, 1 assist, and only 1 turnover. And so, I love not having a lot of turnovers. And so I think Lindsey played great, as well as they also finished, if I'm not mistaken, top 5 in Charlotte scoring. So like we're putting goals on the board. So big shout out to Lindsey for the weekend. I thought from what I saw slash played in Detroit versus what I saw here, huge improvement. So big shout out to Lindsey there.
Definitely a great shout. They definitely deserve that. I think it's really easy, especially for people who aren't as, locked into watching film, to just look at the stats leaderboard and be like, oh yeah, this person had a great weekend. This person had, this, and this. But it's really the off-ball movement, especially from a player that plays a similar role to Lindsay. that is so crucial in like just in the sport in general. And it's really nice to see recognition for players like that and who play those roles and maybe aren't topping the stat sheets, but are still, getting substantial minutes, getting substantial plays, and doing really big things for their team. So, with that, we're going to transition into fantasy. There is no fantasy this week, but we wanted to recap our last week fantasy rosters because there were some big things happening. A lot of people had a lot of points. So, unfortunately, I forgot to submit my fantasy lineup. I had it ready and we talked about it in the episode, and then I just didn't submit it. But I went through and I looked at all the players that I had, and I finished with 829.9 points, and that would have put me in 18th. So, one down from last week. Not really happy about that, but I am happy about how my players performed. I feel like they definitely pulled in a bunch of points. And Nick, how did your team do?
I missed the top 10 by one. I'm so sick. I'm number 11 this week. I missed out. I'm looking at it right now by what is that? 5.6 points. Like I'm right there on the top 10. So sad about that. Um, really, and it's no like again, we're fun and games here, but Alyssa let me down, only 24 points. If
Don't talk about my goat like that. Okay.
I needed 6 more points, Alyssa, I would have been top 10. But you still play great. You still play great.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
cooking right here for you. Of you getting the ball over Ashton Butler and then putting it back in. Yeah, I actually watched film. I saw it. So I'll put it right there just for you.
Yeah, don't sleep on my goat. Don't sleep on her.
So definitely sad about that. But we're gonna come back because we're right there, right? One of these weeks is gonna hit. So I'm excited for what that looks like.
Yeah, I think Riley ended up pulling the most points. I think Riley maxed out at 250, which is more than Hayden. Hayden had 247. So I believe the number one roster had both Hayden and Riley. Yep, they did. Okay, so that's why the number one roster, their list was Hayden Boys, Miguel Esparza, Riley Woolman, Alyssa Vialba, Selin Richard, Valdemar Nunez, Austin Cruz, and Isabella Ramirez in the wild card. So that's a great, great lineup. Definitely utilizing a lot of these San Antonio and Houston players, mostly San Antonio, but definitely a great shout. I wish one of these days I'm gonna crack the top 10 and Nick's gonna win. So be on the lookout for us because we're improving.
Hey, when it comes up, I'm gonna make a special post on Fast Break News just for that. Just for
Highest ever fantasy rating.
but yeah, Whitney, any hot takes? I know we don't have any series this week. But anything going on?
Well, since there is no quad ball this weekend and it's America's 250th birthday, we should talk about soccer because, the U.S. men's national team, they're doing great. They're on the road to the round of 16, gonna match up against Belgium on Monday in Seattle. Nick, did you get a chance to watch that game at all?
Yeah, I was able to watch it. The USA are the only teams that I've ever been able to actually see their goals. It's like I turn off my TV or I step away and then they score. Like Messi's hat trick, literally every time I walked away, Messi scored. Like I didn't understand. So like I watched the game. First goal was good. That offsides, like we just need to get rid of VAR. Like that's not offside.
No, dude. Oh my God, bro. Okay, the problem with the offsides rule is that they call it too late. Okay, that is the problem. They let these guys go and score and celebrate, and then they're like, "Nope, sorry, you were offsides." Okay, that's
Let the
my hot
kids
take.
play. No, just go back to eye tests. Right. I'm more happy with that. I'm cool with that. Uh,
Yeah.
but the red card is trash.
Oh my God, I was going to talk about that.
Oh man. That horrible, horrible call. Horrible.
Yeah. And not having Flo in the Belgium game is going to hurt us, but Pepe, he's a pretty goated like bench like coming off the bench player. So, and he's put in some good minutes for their national team in years past, especially in the qualifiers for the 2022 World Cup. So, very excited to see him start. But talking about goals, as we're filming this, actually, Portugal and Croatia are playing. It is the 84th minute, and Ronaldo has scored a penalty. So it's 1-1 right now. We might
Hey,
see another game in extra time.
one know what's crazy is that I turned off my TV. I had the game up and I turned it off right before we started. And you see what happened? They scored. Like I don't
Exactly.
understand.
Dude, I know Targo had that on when we were talking earlier. He
Yeah,
was watching
for
it.
sure. Yeah, for sure did.
So I
But
don't know.
yeah, anything else that we need to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, keep a lookout as we get into. Oh, we didn't talk about the rankings.
Oh, that's the biggest thing. We're
That
about
is like the one of the most important things.
we're about to bring you because this is gonna drop before we do the rankings technically. So if you watch it,
Oh, so
you get
this
a
is
sneak
sneak
peek.
peek. Sneak peek.
I'll pull them up right
This
now on the screen. Nick, edit this in a little bit later. Your new number one, the New York Titans.
wow.
Golf clap.
One golf clap.
Uh,
We can do it alone. There
so
we
I
go.
think really New York overtaking KC was really because New York looked a lot more dominant over against Washington than KC
Yeah.
did, particularly in those later games. But again, numbers are tight here. So don't take these with a grain of salt. Take these with a grain of salt, however you want to feel about them. I think the more important thing, so what's happening is the parity in the middle of the pack here
Yeah.
between Nitty dropping, Washington dropping, Charlotte and Houston moving up and being tied. Like, Whitney, what do you think about it? I know you, of course, you're one of the rankings, as am I, but there's a
Yes.
bunch of other people who are ranking. But like, how are you feeling about them?
Well, I will say, starting off, this is I feel like, this is really a personal violation of my sanctity as a voter, but I'm gonna say I voted New York number one, all right?
Mm.
And I think that has a lot to do with how Washington is. Like Washington, we had Washington as, a good, I think they were top six or top seven, and they were up there. We were expecting them to, give New York at least a pretty good game and then, beat Washington, beat Boston, and they did neither of those things. And so you can definitely see how that reflects in the rankings. But on the other hand, Kansas City, they played Houston, who was able to rise. And that is definitely, something to look out for, matches. But I gotta say, MLQ parity has been amazing, and I'm really happy to see all these different movements, especially from Charlotte and Houston, who have really proved a lot of the voters wrong and have earned their place in these rankings. And who do you guys think is better, Charlotte or Houston? We don't know. We tied them in the rankings.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really appreciated is that I saw a plus on the Reddit, people talking about like, oh, I think it was maybe it was a line on Instagram. It was one of them that was like, oh, I wish there was parity in MLQ, but then every series is a sweep. And then we got the 2-1 this weekend. And although
Hmm.
every series before that 2-1 has been a sweep, there have been some incredibly close games. And now
Yeah.
that we have the conference championship format, like there are going to be some nice games there, especially that they're actually going to be played as series and not just individual games. Like if teams are able to go to 3 games, oh, like that's going to be must watch quad ball for those entire weekend. So I'm
Yeah.
excited. I hope you all are. We only have a couple more weeks before the conference championships. I feel like the season has flown by. Um,
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely has. I can't believe it's July already. It's insane.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I hope our real fans enjoy their sneak peek of the Fast Break News rankings. This is privileged information. So embrace this and remember that if you watch our show, other things like this will happen. So next week, MLQ will finally be back, and we're going to preview Chicago at Toronto and a very, very important matchup as the Boston Forge will travel south to face off against the New York Titans. Definitely going to be a much must-watch matchup. Definitely going to be MLQ's match of the week. So keep your eye out for that one.
yeah. It's gonna be a great weekend back for quad ball. That's what I can tell you. And then guess what's after that? Us in Cleveland, and then KC San Antonio. Oh, the last 2 weeks are must watch quad ball. We're
Definitely.
also must watch TV. And so make sure you continue to tune in to the show. Make sure to check out all of our content. We're going to have some more previews coming out soon, a couple guest appearances, some more articles, some more fun stuff. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, post notifications if you don't already have them on, which you should. More importantly, I hope you all have a great weekend.
And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.